شہنشاہوں سے بڑھ کر ہی رہیں گے، ذیشان و کریم آپ کے نوکر ہی رہیں گے، ذیشان و کریم آپ کے نوکر ہی رہیں گے۔ دے دیجئے خدمت کا صلہ حضرت عباس، صدقہ ہو سکینہ کا عطا حضرت عباس، اے فاطمہ زہرا کی دعا حضرت عباس، صدقہ ہو سکینہ کا عطا حضرت عباس۔ یا غازی مولا یا غازی یا مولا باب حوائج عباس۔
اہل حرم سنتے ہیں اذان اکبر کی تڑپ کر، اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر اکبر۔ آ گئی ہے صبح قیامت، ہے جب سے دلوں کی حالت جانتی یہ ہر مادر ہے، آنے والی ہے وہ ساتھ، آشا بن کر لوٹے گا جب ہر ایک دل بر، اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر۔ جب پکارا اللہ اکبر ہم شبیہ پیغمبر نے، رو دیے افلاک پہ سارے حور و غلمان اور فرشتے، اور بپا کو حرام ہوا، اور بپا کو حرام ہوا خیموں کے اندر، اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر۔ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ، اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ۔ آیا جس دم نام محمد، رو پڑے بے ساختہ مولا، دیکھتے ہیں نظر بھر کر وہ یوں جواں بیٹے کا سینہ، گرتا ہے آنکھوں میں پسر کی موت کا منظر، اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اکبر اکبر اللہ اشک بار ہوئے خود اکبر، سوچتے ہیں بابا پر کیا بیتے گی میرے لاشے پر، نکالیں گے جب نام علی کا لے کر۔ کربلا والوں تک کب ہے منحصر یہ عزا اکبر کی، ہو گئی بے حال مدینے میں سے سن کر صغرا بھی، ہوتی ہے وہ ساتھ میں ہر جملہ دوہرا کر۔ جس گھڑی آغاز ہوا دربار میں بے وقت اذان کا، یاد کرتی ہوئی تب زینب منظر صبح عاشورا، حسرت سے تکتی ہے سنا، حسرت سے تکتی ہے سنا پر اکبر کا سر۔ یاد ہو جاتی ہے تازہ ہر برس عمران اور میسم، فجر کو عاشور کی سنتے ہیں اذان جب اہل ماتم، روتے ہیں سر پیٹتے ہیں خود ساتھ یہ کہہ کر۔ مولا دیکھتے ہیں نظر بھر کر وہ یوں جہاں بیٹے کا سینہ، گرتا ہے آنکھوں میں پسر کی موت کا منظر۔ گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا، العطش العطش ہائے العطش، گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا، العطش العطش ہائے العطش، ارے تشنہ لب ہے آل مصطفیٰ کا قافلہ، ہائے العطش، کربلا کے دشت میں صدا، العطش العطش ہائے العطش، گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا، العطش العطش ہائے العطش، ہائے خالی کوزے تھے ہر ایک دل بدن کے پاس، پھول سے لبوں پہ تھی صدائے ہائے پیار، صدائے ہائے پیار، ارے اور سامنے رواں تھی مہر القمہ، ہائے العطش، گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں سے نڈھالتے نڈھالتے ارے حر کی جان حر کی جان لے رہی تھی بس یہی صدا ہائے اللہ تاش
گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ
ہائے خون روا تھا پیاس میں لبے صغیر سے تشنگی بجھائی حرملا نے تیر سے حرملا نے تیر سے ارے ایک بوند بھی نہ اس کو پانی مل سکا ہائے اللہ تاش
گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ
ہائے بولیے سکینہ میں اداس رہ گئی اب تو حشر تک یہ میری پیاس رہ گئی پیاس رہ گئی ہائے پیاس رہ گئی ارے لوٹ کر نہ آئے نہر سے میرے چچا ہائے اللہ تاش
گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ
ہائے دونوں بازو کٹ گئے تو گر گیا علم مشک چھد گئی لہو بہا ہوا ستم بہا ہوا ستم ارے گر کے خاک پر جری نے رو کے یہ کہا ہائے اللہ تاش
گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ
ہائے آج بھی تڑپ رہی ہے لاش باوفا تشنا لب ہے آج تک بھتیجی اور چچا بھتیجی اور چچا ارے آ رہی ہے آ رہی ہے آج بھی سکینہ کی صدا ہائے اللہ تاش
گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش آتش ہائے اللہ
ہائے آل مصطفیٰ نے جو سہی ہے مشکلیں کیا بیاں کروں حسن میں وہ مصیبتیں ارے سر جھکا کے بس قلم نے اتنا لکھ دیا ہائے اللہ تاش ہائے اللہ تاش ہائے اللہ تاش ہائے اللہ تاش صدائے ہائے پیار ارے اور سامنے رواں تھی نہر القمہ ہائے اللہ تاش
گونجتی تھی کربلا کے دشت میں صدا آتش
खुद ही सीने से आकर तुझे लगा लेती। पुराना हाल जो होता, हुसैन आ जाओ। सैयारे दोस्त ये ज़हरा, हुसैन आ जाओ। सैयारे दोस्त ये ज़हरा, हुसैन आ जाओ।
على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تكن آياتي تتلى عليكم فكنتم بها تكذبون. قالوا ربنا غلبت علينا شقوتنا وكنا قوما ضالين. ربنا أخرجنا منها فإن عدنا فإنا ظالمون. قال اخسئوا فيها ولا تكلمون إنه كان فريق من عبادي يقولون ربنا آمنا فاغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. فاتخذتموهم سخريا حتى أنسوكم ذكري وكنتم منهم تضحكون. إني جزيتم اليوم بما صبروا أنهم هم الفائزون. قال كم لبثتم في الأرض عدد سنين؟ قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم فاسأل العادين. قال إن لبثتم إلا قليلا لو أنكم كنتم تعلمون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدع مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
We will now have Marcia by Brother Abbas Ali Muraj, followed by Marthia by Brother Abbas Hassan Datu. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. آل इमरान कहा और जिंदान कहा لے بہن قید ہوئی تو نہ آیا غازی جب ردا سر سے چنی میں صدا دیتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی آ گئی شام علم لٹ گئے اہل حرم ریت پر جلتی ہوئی ہو گیا ٹھنڈا علم پرسہ دینے کے لیے تجھ سے ملنے کے لیے آ گئے بابا علی تو نہ آیا غازی دھوپ میں تو تھا شجر تجھ سے آباد تھا گھر ہے برہنا میرا سر کیا نہیں تجھ کو خبر اے علمدار وفا اس بہن کو باخدا تجھ سے دھارس تھی بڑی تو نہ آیا غازی کیا کہوں شعر میرے بیریدہ ہم کو لیے یہ مسلمان سارے شہر در شہر گئے خلقت کوفہ کبھی خلقت شام کبھی بارہا ہم پہ ہنسی تو نہ آیا غازی کتنی بے بس تھی بہن اے شہنشاہ وفا نام لے لے کے میرا جب یہ ظالم نے کہا ناز تھا جس پہ تجھے اب بلاؤ نا اسے اور میں روتی رہی تو نہ آیا غازی کیا سکینہ سے کہوں اے میرے دل کے سکون ہائے پانی کے لیے بہہ گیا سب تیرا خون اب کوئی آس نہیں تو میرے پاس نہیں رسی شانوں میں بندھی تو نہ آیا غازی قید خانے میں قضا جب سکینہ کو ملی دیکھ کے کرتے کا کفن بچی دفنائی گئی اس گھڑی نام تیرا صورت ناد علی कसमें दोहराती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। जब रिदा सर से छिनी, मैं सदा देती रही, तू ना आया गाजी। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
On Ashura, my father leaves, in the heat of the burning sun. Oh, what tragedy has already occurred! Actions performed that cannot be undone. He looks back at me for one last glance. My time as Imam has nearly begun. But why is he walking out alone? Where is his protector? Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you, he needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you, he needs you. Hey there, your dear father asked you to protect him. Hey there, your dear father asked you to protect him. Now he stands all alone. Abbas, he needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Furat kept calling you, fulfill cries of Ruqayyah. Furat kept calling you, fulfill cries of Ruqayyah. Who cried more when the flag fell? Anguished, he needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Master, loving title you used for your brother. Master, loving title you used for your brother. He just called out Halmin, forlorn, he needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Your eyes, watching closely over us, our protector. Your eyes, watching closely over us, our protector. Who protect Hussein now alone? He needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Oh, Abbas, protector, he needs you. He needs you. Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومني السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, tonight our azadar is accepted, but to allow more azadars inside the hall and to facilitate the dhikr of Abu Abdullah, please I ask you to stand up and move forward with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As far forward as you can, and there's more spaces on the right than on the left, so please try and move. Your left, my right. Please try and move forward again with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We will now have Quranic reflections by Brother Muhammad Datu. Please welcome him with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So in the small reflection I want to do, inshallah, I want to talk about Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam. But before I do that, Asif, what's in my right hand? Phone. That would be the simple answer to give, right? Simple. One question, one answer. But when Musa alayhi salam is asked in the Holy Quran, when he finally meets Allah in this Wadi al-Muqaddasi Tuwa, in this sacred valley, he's holding his stick and he meets Allah for the first time. And Allah says, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa. What's in your right hand, O Musa? And Musa's reply is not just قَالَ هِيَ عَصَايَ, it's a stick. قَالَ هِيَ عَصَايَ أَتَوَكَّأُ عَلَيْهَا وَأَهُشُّ بِهَا عَلَى غَنِيمِي وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى. Musa alayhi salam goes on and on that this is a stick, sometimes I lean on it, sometimes I beat the leaves for my livestock. وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى. And I have other uses for it as well. But Musa, Allah asked you one simple question. What's in your right hand? You didn't stop talking. Why? Why did Musa not stop talking? Because for the first time, Musa alayhi salam tasted the sweetness of conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he felt that sweetness of Allah speaking to him, he didn't want it to stop. So he continued to talk to Allah. He didn't want that beauty and that feeling that he had to stop. How unfortunate is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us 5 times a day to talk to him, just 5. But we really struggle. We don't have that excitement that Musa alayhi salam had. You know, sometimes I wonder if Salah wasn't wajib upon us, would we still go and talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Would we wake up at 3 a.m. and speak to him? Would we stop our business in the middle of the day and converse with him? And would we leave our activities at night once we're tired just to have that 3-4 minute conversation with him in Salah? Unfortunately, we fall in maybe into that trap where the Salah isn't exciting for us. Speaking to Allah isn't as exciting. And even when we do it, maybe it's because it's wajib, so we'd have to do it. But even when we do, there's no presence of heart when we're speaking to Allah. That we're standing there, we're talking to him, but we're not really there. I'll give you a quick story of 2 people, Layla and Majnoon. Majnoon is a very handsome man in the city who's crazy after this girl called Layla. And Layla is just an ordinary girl, but she hates Majnoon. She can't stand him. And he follows her everywhere she goes. So she goes somewhere, he's behind. One day, there's a man praying in the mosque, and Layla enters from one door and leaves through another. Now this man sees. Now Majnoon enters. Now imagine, Majnoon is crazy in love. He enters and he goes through one door looking for Layla. But he comes out, it's the wrong door. Then he tries to go through another door. But he's Majnoon, he hits the wall, he falls down, gets up, goes through another door. Again, it's the wrong door. Again, he comes back. Again, through another door. In Salah, this guy is getting irritated. So now, he's trying to point, whilst he's praying, in Salah, to the door where Layla's gone. But Majnoon is not looking, he keeps going through the wrong door. Finally, this man finishes his Salah. And he says, "Oh Majnoon, you're so crazy. I was trying to tell you where Layla went, but you weren't even looking at me." And Majnoon says to him that I was so infatuated and so in love with my beloved that I didn't see you. Were you not so infatuated with your beloved, Allah, that you didn't see me? And it shows that every time we pray, many a times maybe we start the Salah from the first takbir until the last takbir, we've forgotten Allah in that whole Salah. We've remembered everything, remembered the things we've forgotten, but we haven't remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a practical point, From today onwards, inshallah, in a few hours, we'll recite Salatul Maghribain. Let us try an extra bit harder to thank Allah in our Salah and to remember Him through the Salah, from the first takbir until the last takbir. We speak of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who on the battlefield decided to stop and pray Salah. And now imagine when there's kids running around, we lose our concentration. This man was in battle with arrows being showered upon him. And if he could concentrate in his Salah, then we have no excuse not to put a little bit more effort and be grateful to Allah in our Salah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mu'minin, let's begin by remembering all our marhumin and Surah al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. The Hujjat EC on Wednesday 26th of July 2023 extends its condolences to the community as we commemorate the martyrdom of Abdullah alayhi salatu wassalam and his family. We humbly request the community to support our endeavors at Hujjat Hairfield so we can continue to serve the Azadar for generations to come. Please speak to a representative at the Hujjat Hairfield desk if you would like more information. Our daily program information can be found on our website hujjat.org or via our WhatsApp messaging service. And a few youth at Hujjat have created a 3D display to capture the visual representation of the martyrdom on the Holy Lands of Karbala. It is displayed near the gents entrance and inshallah will be there and changing on a nightly basis. All are encouraged to visit it. Fourthly, a majlis has been arranged at Brookwood Cemetery on Ashura Day. After many years, a coach has been arranged. The subsidies cost is £5. Please contact Muhammad Bachoo. And the World Federation Global Headcount Initiative will run across all federations on the day of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. The initiative will involve all individuals attending their respective centers, both male and female, across all age groups. You will receive a blank card from a volunteer as you enter the center. There will be a table with boxes labeled according to age groups, and you will place your card into the box that corresponds with your age group. And the Muharram Niyaz Fund is open. Please donate generously at the Treasurer's desk. Those who have not paid their membership subscription should pay at the desk or online. And finally, those wishing to depart the center in good time, please park in Rugby or Mandar car park, and don't forget to pay the £1 charge. If you park inside the center, your departure may be delayed. And please note that the Mandar and Rugby car park will close at 10:45 p.m. Let us remember all those who are ill on this night with the recitation of 5 times Amma Yujibu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mudhtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mudhtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma yujibu al-mudhtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Please, as we welcome Shaykh for the lecture and we stand up to welcome him, please move as far forward as possible. Just imagine if Sayyida Zahra is at the back of the hall and you are facilitating one more azadar from being inside rather than outside listening to the lecture in the rain, how much thawab and blessings you will have and how much barakat there is in that. So please, if one person even gets a space because you have moved forward, let it happen. Please move as far forward and welcome Shaykh with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
وآل محمد عظم الله لكم الأجر يا شيعة بقرب محرم وما هي إلا أيام وننادي يا حسين يا أبا عبد الله عظم الله لك الأجر يا رسول الله ويا أمير المؤمنين ويا فاطمة يا سيدتي نساء العالمين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight is the 8th night of the month of Muharram, and tonight is a night when we remember Al-Abbas and we remember the one who is known as Babul Hawa'ij. Let us begin the conversation this evening by sending our salams and our salutations to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik alayka minni salamullah أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى حسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Last night we spoke about the role of a scholar in unlocking the human potential. And we also spoke about how our scholars connect our communities to the sources of Islam, to the spiritual roots of Islam, and to the ideological roots of Islam. Tonight, we would like to speak about the role of teachers in unlocking the human potential. One of the most important decisions that we make in our life is the decision about our own education and the decision about the education of our children. And therefore, it becomes important for us to know, one, the significance and the role of a teacher in the life of a person. Secondly, also to know about the qualities of a good teacher, who should be our teacher. Thirdly, also to understand what was the system of education that the early Muslims were following, especially in the golden years of Islamic civilization. Fourthly, also for us to understand what are some of the structural challenges that we see in the modern system of education. And then finally, how do we as a community address it, and how do we as a community manage it? Now we are going to start by speaking about the importance of a teacher. A teacher in Arabic is called a muallim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces himself to us as a muallim. A teacher is manifesting one of the most important attributes of God. In fact, when the first verses of Revelation came down, the Almighty says to us, Iqra, read. Bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqa al-insana min alaq, Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram, alladhi allama bil-qalam. Allah says, He is the one who taught you by the pen, علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduces himself to us as one who teaches us. Even the Prophet of Allah, when he describes his role, he describes himself as a teacher. We saw yesterday that the Prophet played many roles in the community. But whenever he was asked what was his work, the Prophet used to say, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا. Surely I have only been sent as a teacher. And therefore you find that in the early history of Islam, teachers were seen as people who were following the prophetic tradition. The teacher was a manifestation of the Prophet in his community. And therefore you see that early Muslim communities gave a lot of importance and significance to teachers. In fact, sometimes the status of a teacher was even seen to be higher than the status of parents in Islam. The status of a teacher was seen to be even higher than the status of parents in Islam. And the reasoning they gave is that the parents are the biological mother and father to a child, whereas the teacher is the spiritual and ideological father or mother to the child. One of our great scholars was Sharif al-Radi. And one of the practices that Sharif al-Radi had is that he never accepted gifts. One of the rights of a believer is that you accept his gifts. But he had a position in his society where he could not accept gifts because he wanted to be neutral. For example, a judge may not accept gifts. So one day his teacher gave him a gift, and Sharif al-Radi declined to take the gift. So the teacher insisted that you must take this gift. So Sharif al-Radi said to him, "Of late I have not even accepted a gift from my father." The teacher said, "So it may be, but I have a greater right that you accept my gift." And the reason that he gave, he said that your father was the cause of your temporal life in this world, whereas the teacher becomes the cause of your permanent life in the hereafter. The role of the teacher is very important. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, especially our younger brothers and sisters, one of the professions that we need the Muslim community to consider is the profession of a teacher. It is one of the most important professions in the community. Our engineers, they build our buildings. Our doctors, they take care of our bodies. But the teacher is the one who molds the mind, and the teacher is the one who nurtures the soul. And therefore the hadith tells us the most generous of people are those who acquire knowledge and then they share that knowledge. But we also see that in the early history of Islam, Muslims were very careful on whom they chose to be their teacher. They would take a lot of time in choosing their teacher. Right? They didn't just look at the educational background of the teacher. In fact, they also paid attention to the character of the teacher. What is the akhlaq of this teacher? And they also paid attention to the iman of the teacher. How strong is this teacher in faith? You find in the early history of Islam, there was no distinction between the teachers of religion and the teachers of the natural sciences. In fact, in the early history of Islam, the teachers of religion and the teachers of science were one and the same. Take the example of Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi. Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi has written one of the most important books of Islamic theology. Today, our theology has been shaped by that book. He is one of the greatest theologians that the Shi'as have in their history. And yet the same Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi is also the most important astronomer in the history of Islamic civilization. I don't know how many of us know that when Copernicus comes and presents the heliocentric model of the solar system, he has to use a mathematical tool that is known as the 2C couple. And the 2C couple was something that was developed by Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi and his students in his observatory that he got the Mongols to build for him in Maragha. And the same is with Ibn Sina. And the same with many of the scholars of Islam. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, Before I share this with you, I'm being asked to ask you to move forward as much as possible. If I can request you to stand up, recite a salawat, and move forward. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And therefore, brothers, when I say that in the early history of Islam, the Muslims were very careful in the selection of their teachers, it wasn't just in the selection of their religious teachers. They were also very careful when it came to selecting their teachers who taught them mathematics, who taught them science. They understood that these teachers were able to influence them. Teachers are always going to be in a position of authority, and teachers are going to influence our faith, and they are going to influence our character. And so the hadith says, do not sit with those who have knowledge unless they have 5 qualities. Do not sit with those who have knowledge unless they have 5 qualities. The first quality the Imam mentions is that this person takes you min ash-shakki ila al-yaqeen. A teacher should be somebody who takes you from doubt and brings you into certainty. So the manner in which this teacher is supposed to teach biology to you, he should remove any doubt that you have about the existence of Allah, and he should increase the certainty that you have about the existence of your Creator. The teacher should be somebody who teaches good morals to you. The Imam says in the hadith, and he should take you min al-kibri ila tawadu'. He should take you from pride and arrogance to having humbleness. He should inculcate within you that even though you have learned a skill and you have picked up some content, that shouldn't bring about pride within you. He shouldn't teach you to be proud of yourself. They shouldn't be telling you, you are you. You did it. Of course you did it. But you did it by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore we find the early Muslims were very careful even in selecting the teachers for their children. Now when we look at the golden years of Islam, we see that in the golden years of Islamic civilization, they had a particular system of education. This system of education was spread far and wide. In fact, they say during those years, every village, not every city, every village and town had schools within it. And these schools had certain features. And these features were inspired by the spirit of Islam. The first feature of these schools is that many of these schools were in the masjid. Muslims did not only think of mosques as places of prayer. Muslims thought of mosques as places of learning. The first schools in Medina were established in Masjidun Nabi itself. The early Muslims used to say whenever we would enter the mosque of the Prophet and it was not the time of salat, you would see halaqa. You would see circle. Some people were studying Quran and some people were studying ahkam. And this was not only in the early days of Islam. This continued centuries on. It is said that in the time of the 5th Imam, Hisham ibn al-Hakam, and when we say that mosques became a place of learning, sometimes we assume that people were learning religion in the mosques. No, people were also learning science in the mosque. Students were also learning astronomy in the mosque. The mosque is where schools happened. Okay? The time of Hisham, he commissioned the expansion of Masjidun Nabi. So after the expansion was completed, Hisham decided to come to Medina. And when he entered the masjid, there was a class happening in the masjid. So he sat down. And on that day, the class was being taught by the 5th Imam. And the topic of discussion in that class was astronomy. the topic of discussion in Masjidun Nabi from the mimbar was astronomy. Hisham sat there and he couldn't understand a word of what was being said. And he saw a young child sitting there. So he asked his companion, that young child, does he understand what is being said? And the man said, that young child understands the best what his father is saying. That young child of the age of 13 is Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Schools were being held in mosques. One. Later, they were also held near the mosques. Okay. The second thing that we see, that the sciences that they were learning were sciences which were inspired by the Quran. Subhanallah. The Quran made one mention and the Muslims turned that word into a science. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Iqra, read. So amongst the first thing that a Muslim child would learn is how to read, is how to write, and how to compose letters. Okay. Allah says in the Quran, Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. The greatest mercy of God, even before your own creation, is that He has taught you the Quran. Okay. Therefore, you find one of the earliest things that a Muslim child had to learn was how to read and how to recite the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Mulk, that Allah has created sab'a samawatin tibaqa. Correct? He has created the 7 heavens in layers, 7 skies, sorry, in layers. ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت. You are never going to see any disharmony in the creation of God. فارجع البصر. No, look again. فارجع البصر, look again, became a whole science that Muslims studied. One of the things that a Muslim child would later study was astronomy. Okay? And later, of course, they would study logic, they would study philosophy, they would study theology, they would study ahkam, they would study poetry, they would study medicine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions shifa in the Quran, that we have put shifa, we have put cure and healing in certain things. One of the most important sciences that the Muslims studied was the science of medicine, of tib. So secondly, these sciences were being inspired directly by the Quran. The third thing that we see in the golden years of Islamic civilization is that the goal of education was to build human beings and to nurture human beings and to turn these children into wholesome human beings. So these schools, they were called madrasa. Sometimes the gatherings were called halaqa, and sometimes they were called maktab. Some of our brothers, even today, they come to me and they say, we want to send our children to the maktab. This word has survived even today. Maktab meant school. Okay? And the teacher was called muallim. Muallim al-Sibyan. But one of the most important names given to the teacher was mu'addib. Mu'addib meaning the ones who gives adab, who nurtures the child, who instills good values into the child. Right? The goal of education was to create a wholesome human being. Right? In fact, even the fourth Imam, Imam As-Sajjad, alayhi afdalu salati was salam, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We see that Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam, he says in Risalatul Huquq, the treatise of rights, that one of your duties and one of your responsibilities as a parent, which Allah is going to ask you about, is to do ta'deeb, is to nurture the character of your children. Now this was the education system in the golden years of Islam. Let us come to the modern education system. Okay? Today you find that when we moved from our countries, wherever we were, to the West, there are some institutions that we created ourselves. We made our mosques. We made some of our sports facilities. We made some of our support structures. But there are certain institutions that we have decided to adopt. And one of those institutions is the public schooling system. Recently, a lot of parents have become concerned about the content that is being taught in the public schooling system. And parents want the right to decide what their children should learn and what their children should not learn. Parents are asking that we don't want the schools, the public schools anyways, to be a place of indoctrination. It should be a place of, they say, education. But I want you to consider that this is one of the issues that we're seeing in the public school system. Okay? It's important for us to have a structural understanding of the public system. Right? Now, my dear brothers, some of these conversations that we have, it's not necessarily that tomorrow we need to do something about it. Sometimes we're having these conversations so that we have a deeper understanding of the society in which we live. See, over the last few nights, I have been speaking to you about technology and a bit of a critique of technology. And I have been saying that we need to understand the unintended consequences of technology. I understand that we're not about to stop using technology. I myself am using the iPad. Yes. But what we are trying to say over here is that if we have a better understanding of it, then we can make a conscious and thoughtful decision on how we want to use it and how we don't want to use it. If we have a better understanding of the education system, then it allows us as parents and as students to have a better decision on how we want to engage with it and how we don't want to engage in it. Now, when we look at the Western world, we see that there are two important changes that happen almost at the same time, about 2 or 3 centuries ago. The first change is the introduction of the public schooling system. In 1870, in Britain, they passed the Education Act. And in the Education Act, it is decided that the government is now going to be running public schooling, right? The local councils are going to be deciding what the curriculum is going to be. They are going to be deciding who the teachers are going to be, and they are going to be deciding what the environment is going to be like that. That is important. The reason why it's important is because during this time, the community is ceding the ta'aleem and the tarbiyah of their children to the government. It is saying we are okay for the government to decide what our children should learn and what our children should not learn. Okay? Let's appreciate that. Let's appreciate that we have accepted, for the large part, that the government is going to decide. And the reason why I emphasize this is because when we have an issue with RSE, for example, that's being taught, let us appreciate that the underlying assumption we have accepted. The underlying assumption is that I am going to cede the right of raising my child to some extent to the public system. Okay. The second thing that happens, historically speaking, is the secularization of knowledge and the secularization of education. Okay. And this is where the heavy lifting is going to happen in tonight's discussion after you recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So what does it mean to secularize knowledge? It means a number of things. The first thing that it means is that, historically speaking, there was a hierarchy to knowledge. In the lands of the Muslimin, and even in the West, there was a hierarchy of knowledge. The lowest of knowledges, though it was important, but the lowest of knowledges were the natural sciences. They called them the tabi'iyat, such as biology, physics, chemistry. The middle knowledge was called mathematics, riyadiyat. And the highest of knowledge was called the metaphysics, ilahiyat, tabi'iyat, and then riyadiyat, and then ilahiyat. Okay? So if you notice, when a person goes through the education system and he goes through the university, right? After he's done his master's degree, he gets what is called a PhD. And what a PhD is, it's the doctorate in what? A doctorate in philosophy. So it means that this person has studied his natural sciences. Having done that, this person has studied mathematics. Having done that, this person has now completed the highest level of studies, which is philosophy. And now this person is being given a doctorate in philosophy. Okay? And in Islam, we generally accepted that. In the ahadith, we are told the best of sciences is ma'rifatullah, is to have knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The modern system came and wiped out this hierarchy. No longer is there going to be a hierarchy of knowledge. Right? Everything is on the same plane. But what it also did is it removed the most important of the sciences, the metaphysics, the theology, the cream of what is to be studied by a human being, from the public schooling system. Okay? This is important. Remember, this is going to be very important. The second thing that it also did is, when you come to tabi'iyat, the natural sciences, it gutted the natural sciences. And it removed two of the most important discussions historically in the natural sciences. When you look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the world of creation in the Quran, it is always tied to two things. He never wants you to conceive his creation without thinking of two things. Without it, that thing loses meaning. The first thing is the origin. Where does it come from? And the second thing is the purpose. Why did he create it? The first one goes back to his creatorship. The second one goes back to his wisdom, his hikmah. Okay? For example, in the Quran, Allah says, وَزَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has adorned the sky of this earth with what? With stars. So first thing he says, we have adorned it. So know where the stars have come from. And the second thing he tells us, it has been there for a purpose. Stars exist for a purpose. And that purpose is not just by coincidence. That purpose is a higher purpose. And one of the higher purposes we have given it is that it gives beauty to the night sky. The early Arabs, they recognized the awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were filled with awe when they walked out into the desert in the night. And they looked at the open sky. And they saw the stars. That's where they experienced the jalal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what did modern science do? It removed discussions of the origin, and it removed discussions of what? Of purpose. This is never how the Quran wanted us to see the world of creation. It is not how the Quran wanted to raise a young man or a young lady to look at the world of creation. Okay? The third thing that it also did is that it also removed any of the discussions on nurturing the spirit. You find, for example, in modern schools, one of the classes that young early Muslims used to learn, and you no longer find it in the schools today, is a class that is dedicated to ethics and building character. A class that is dedicated to teaching akhlaq. Even when they are teaching in the schools, they no longer want to promote values. They no longer want to promote a certain set of values. They want to promote another set of values, but certain set of values, they will move back from promoting those. Don't you notice that when they speak about health education, in the past, the conversation of health education centered around abstinence, isn't it? And abstinence is what? A value, okay? And this requires the school to promote a value. But today, in health education, the conversation does not center around abstinence. The conversation centers around what? It centers around, well, you will decide what you want to do, but we're just going to teach you the safest way of doing it. That conversation about these are good ethics, this is how you should live your life, that has been removed from modern education. Okay? So now what has been the result of that? Where does that take us as a community? One of the recent research that I came across that was published 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. In this research, they were tracking the religiosity and the belief in God in young Americans. And they were seeing that religiosity and the belief in God is gradually but surely declining in young Americans. Now, the researchers wanted to see what is the cause of this. And one of the causes that they pinpointed in this research, they say that one of the main causes is the schooling system. And the secularization of the schooling system. And the fact that the schooling system does not teach children about God. Now, I am going to explain this. Okay. They quoted one of the authors. He's a British author, has written a book on the crisis of education. The point that this author makes is what I want us to appreciate right now. That secularism does not mean there is no religion. Secularism itself is a philosophy. And when our schools are secularized, that is also promoting a philosophy. Okay. So this author, he says in the book that the modern school intends to be neutral. However, the modern school is not neutral. The modern school does not try to inculcate or openly repudiate the belief in God. However, it does something that is far more deadly. It does something that is far more deadly. Rather than rejecting the belief in God, it ignores him. It makes him irrelevant. It makes him meaningless. You see, my dear brothers and sisters, children have a very simple formula in their mind. And we as parents have built that formula into the mind of our children. We have taught our children that the school is very important. That everything in your life is going to depend on how well you do at school, isn't it? We've told them that our happiness depends on how well you do at school. If they do well, we reward them. If they don't do well, we become upset with them. Sometimes we don't take the same view of madrasa. Okay. We've told them that if you do well at school, a lot of doors are going to open for you. You're going to get into the best universities. You're going to get the best opportunities in life. Your career depends upon it. Your happiness in life depends upon it. So many other things, who you marry, which house you have, which car you drive, your social status in society, all of this depends on the school. Okay. And then we've told them, whatever you're learning at the school is important. So now the children have developed a very simple formula in their mind. Their formula is this: that if something is important and relevant and meaningful, they are going to teach it at. And if something is not important, it's not relevant, it's not critical to success in life, then they are not going to teach it at school. And at school, they don't teach us about God. They don't teach us about the hereafter. They don't teach us about religion. It can only mean one thing. You don't have to say it to the child. You don't have to verbalize it to the child. Every day the child goes to school, that idea is being inculcated into the heart, deep into the subconscious of the child, that if this religion business was important, then I would have been tested for it at the school. But I'm not being tested about it. Now you find that this has been happening in American society and also in Canadian society. And it's not that the Christians have not tried to react to it. You know, when these changes are happening in society, you find that the Christians, they decided that we're going to have something called Sunday school. And the whole concept of Sunday school actually starts as a reaction to what? To what's happening in the education system. Bible school. If the government schools are not going to teach children about religion, then we are going to teach our children about religion. And yet it seems they have not been able to reverse the changes they are seeing in society. So now where do we go as a community? And where do we go as parents? And where do we go as students? So I'd like to share with you 3 things that I learned from the Ahlul Bayt. Okay? Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The first thing I have seen is that if our children are going to go to public schools, family life becomes very important. And it's very important for us to have conversations within the family. Okay? It's very important for parents to know what is happening in the public schools. As a parent, you are the wali of the child. Do not forget that. You are the wali of the child. And Allah has placed this responsibility in my hand and in your hand. So we have a responsibility to know what is happening in the public school, to take interest in it, to take interest in what they are teaching, to take interest in what the culture is like, to take interest in what are the challenges that the children are facing there, to take interest in what is new, to take interest in the curriculum, to take interest in all of the details of the curriculum. Even when it comes to health education, we must take interest in it. The hadith says, Al-alimu bizamanih. The one who has knowledge of his times. Knowledge is of 2 types. One is knowledge of the religion. That's important to have. The second is knowledge of your society. What's happening in your community? What's happening in the school? The hadith says, that is also important. العالم بزمانه لا تهجم عليه اللوابس. You will find that the uncertainties and the challenges of the time are not going to overcome that person. When they hold functions at the school where they share with us what they're teaching, as parents, we need to be present there. When there's an opportunity to talk to the teacher, as parents, we need to be present there. When our children want to speak to us about what happened at school, as parents, we need to be present over there. Okay? Sometimes as parents, we get busy. I remember I was invited to a public school in Vancouver. It was a high school with 1,000+ students. In the evening, they had a program where they were going to share with parents some of the challenges of social media and the online world. So my children don't go to that school, but I was invited to go there. I went there. It was very interesting to note that out of 1,000 children who go to that school, on that night, only 12 parents came to the session. We need to take interest in what is happening at the school. I'm also going to speak tonight to our young brothers and sisters. It's important to talk to our parents about what is happening at school. Our parents, they are our anchors. And they are the ones who anchor us in our tradition. Our parents are the one who infuse us with Islamic tradition. The way a scholar infuses the community with Islamic tradition, inside the family, it is the mother and father that infuse the family with Islamic tradition. Okay? They provide us with things which are very meaningful, that are later going to become very important in life. You find that in Canada, when they wanted to take away tradition from the First Nations, one of the first things that they did in Canada is that they removed the children of the First Nations from not their schools, not their lands. They removed the children of the First Nations from the wilaya and from the care of their parents. And today, historically, that is being recognized as an act of cultural genocide. Okay? And these children today, believe me, these children go through some of the most difficult times in life. Amongst all the communities and people in Canada, the ones that struggle the most with addiction are the First Nations. And one of the main reasons they go through this suffering and struggle in life is because they have lost their tradition. Their tradition that came from their parents. So it's very important for us at home to have an open communication with our parents, to share with them what's happening at school, and for them to know what is also happening over there. The second thing that comes to our mind is that it's important for us to have conversations about faith at home. Conversations about faith should not be limited to the mosque. Conversations about faith should not be limited to madrasa. Conversations about faith should not be limited to ahkam. Have you prayed? Are you wearing your hijab? Have you recited your Quran? Conversations about faith should be conversations about beliefs, about history, about values, about lifestyle, about the teachings of the Quran. One of the best examples the Quran gives us is the example of Luqman. Allah says in the Quran, and remember the time إِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِابْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ. Remember the time when Luqman was speaking to his son, and he would constantly advise his son, and he said to him, my dear son, do not associate partners to Allah. Just think for a moment. 1, Luqman constantly spoke to his son. 2, his conversation was a very loving conversation. It wasn't an angry conversation. It wasn't let me tell you so conversation. It was Ya Bunayya, my dear son. And thirdly, what did Luqman speak to his son about? He spoke to his son about beliefs, about values, about lifestyle. These conversations are very important in the house. The third thing that will become important for us as a community is to put a lot of effort and to put a lot of investment into building Islamic schools. We have to grow in our himma, in our determination. We have to expand our basira, our vision. And we have to believe that we are able to build Muslim schools. The most important arena where we have to win is the arena of the mind. And minds are formulated in schools. And so we have to have our own schools. Now, my dear brothers, when we first started building schools in Canada, there were a lot of questions. Right? Today, alhamdulillah, from coast to coast in Canada, we have our own schools. Even small cities in Canada have their own Shia schools. Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, if you've heard of it, starting in September, Toronto, Montreal. This week, 3 days ago, a brother from Halifax is a very small town, on an island, in a corner of Canada. He got in touch and said, we want to start our own Shia school in Halifax. We find that when we first started and went on this journey, there were many questions. One of the questions in the community was, are our schools going to be as good as government schools? Are they going to be as good as public schools? Our children, will they be able to go to university or will they not be able to go to university? Our experience in Canada has been that Muslim schools have been amongst the top performing schools in every province. There are years where the Muslim school has been the top school in that province. When I say the top school, I don't mean the top 5%. I even don't mean the top 2%. I mean the top. The school in the whole province. One of the concerns that Mu'mineen also had was, how are our children going to integrate in society, right? When they come out of these schools, are they going to be able to integrate in society? Or are they going to feel isolated from society? Our experience has been when these children go to public school or they go to university, not only are they strong of character, they are strong of confidence, they are leaders in their schools. Some of the young brothers, they come and they tell me that whenever we go into the public school system, the principals, whenever they see us, immediately they tell us, I know which school you come from, without looking at our records. And when we ask them, how do you know where we come from? They say that your confidence and your character and your demeanor tells us you could only come from one school, the Azahra Islamic Academy. So I know that when we look at some of these things, we're seeing challenges. But dear brothers, these are opportunities. We are able to overcome. Whatever we think is an obstacle is not an obstacle. Whatever we think cannot be done, a mu'min can do it. A student of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt can do it. I'm really pleased that in the last 5 years the community has made, inshallah the Imam is pleased, that in the last 5 years the community has made great strides. The fact that you have Hujjat Academy and the fact that you have Ja'fari Academy are important steps that you as a community have taken. It's important for us to continue supporting these steps. It's important for us to continue being engaged in these steps. is important for us to be able to see the bigger picture, that this is the first or second step in a part of that bigger picture. And I hope, inshallah, that in the coming few years and in the coming decades, we are going to see the flourishing of Shia schools in Britain and, inshallah, in London. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let us take our hearts this evening to Karbala. But tonight, instead of facing the haram of Imam al-Hussein, imagine yourself tonight Bain al-Haramain, between the haram of Abbas and Hussein. Imagine yourself looking at the shrine of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. So many of us want to be in Karbala tonight. So many of us want to be near the shrine of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas tonight. So let us take our hearts there. And let us do tawassul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the sake of Imam al-Hussein and for the sake of Bab al-Hawa'ij. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا يا وجيها عند الله Al-Abbas was known to have basira. The sixth Imam says, كان عمنا العباس نافذ البصيرة. Surely our uncle Abbas had piercing vision. And the enemies also recognized this. On the 8th day of Muharram, Shimr ibn Dhil Jawshan enters the plains of Karbala. And he brings a letter for Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. And he says, where are the sons of al-Baneen? Where is Abbas? But Abbas and his brothers do not respond to him. Imam al-Hussein says to Abbas, respond to him even though he is a wretched person. Al-Abbas says to him, what do you want? And Shimr says, I have brought a letter of safety for you. I have brought a letter of security for you. You do not have to die with your brother Al-Hussein. You can escape from the plains of Karbala. You can save your life today. You can save the life of your brothers. Al-Abbas looks at him and says, woe be unto you, and woe be unto the letter that you have brought, that I should save my life, and the son of Fatima should be left surrounded by his enemies. No, by Allah, we shall not do that. The 8th of Muharram turns into the 10th of Muharram. The day of Ashura is a very difficult day for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. One by one, the companions are falling to the battlefield. One by one, the family members are falling to the battlefield. But during that time, there are cries coming from the camp of Imam al-Hussein. These cries are the crying of the children of Imam al-Hussein. And you can hear them in the plains of Karbala. They're calling out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. You know how hot it is on a summer day. Sometimes you have to stop at work to have some water. On the day of Ashura, in the plains of Karbala, we are told when Ali al-Akbar goes to the battlefield, after a while Ali al-Akbar comes back and he says to his father, Ya Abati, my dear father, Al-Atashu qad qatalani. The thirst is killing me. This is Ali al-Akbar. Now imagine the heart of Sakina. Imagine the body of Ali al-Asghar. How thirsty they were in the plains of Karbala. When everybody has been martyred, Al-Abbas comes to Imam al-Hussein and he says, Ya Aba Abdullah, now give me permission to go to the battlefield. The Imam looks at Al-Abbas and he says to him, Anta hamilu liwa'i. You are the standard bearer of my army. You are the flag bearer of my army. Maybe Al-Abbas, he looked to the right. Maybe he looked to the left. Maybe he said to Imam al-Hussein, there is no army left for you. He said, لَقَدْ ضَاقَ صَدْرِي. Ya Aba Abdullah, my chest feels constrained. I see people falling to the plains of Karbala. I see them defending you valiantly. Now allow me to go to the battlefield. The Imam says to him, Al-Abbas, if you must go to the battlefield, then go and bring a little bit of water for the children. He goes to the enemies. He gives them a sermon. He asks for some water, but then he comes back to Imam and he says, these enemies, they're not going to have any mercy on you today. These enemies, they are not going to have any mercy on your children. The Imam says, Oh Abbas, go to the river of Furat. And so Al-Abbas, he now starts to go to the river of Furat. As he is going to the river, he announces his presence and he says, Nafsi li nafsi al-Mustafa waqa inni ana al-Abbas aghdu bis-saqa. My soul be sacrificed for the soul of al-Mustafa. I am known as Abbas, who is the Saqa. He reaches the river of Furat. He comes down from his horse. He fills the water bag with water, and then he holds the water in his hand. This is the water the children are crying for. This is the water the companions were asking for. This is the water that Al-Hussein is thirsty for. He looks at the water and he starts talking to himself. And he says, Ya nafsum min ba'd al-Hussein huni فبعده ما كنت أن تكوني. O soul, what is there to life after Hussein? Who wants to live after Hussein? هذا الحسين وارد المنون. This is Hussein. He has been surrounded by his enemies. وتشربين بارد المعين. Who can think of drinking water at this time? This is not the teaching of my religion. He comes onto the horse and he starts returning back to the camp. When he came towards the river, the enemies could not stop him. But when he was returning back, the enemies would not allow him. One of the enemies was waiting behind a tree. When Al-Abbas was passing, he chopped chopped off the right arm of Abbas. He called out, Wallahi in qata'at yamini. إني أحامي أبدا عن ديني. Even if you cut off my right arm, I am not going to stop protecting my religion. Al-Abbas did not stop. He continues to go to the camp of Imam al-Hussein. Maybe he remembers Lady Sakina. Maybe he's remembering Ali al-Asghar. Maybe he's remembering the ladies in the tent. But as he's going, another enemy comes and he chops off the left arm of Abbas. And he calls out in the plains of Karbala, قَدْ قَطَعُوا بِبَغْيِهِمْ يَسَارِ. They have cuffed off my left arm. But the narrator says, I saw Al-Abbas was not stopping. He continued to go towards the camp. He took the water close to his chest. He put it in his teeth, but he took it to the camp until you find one of the enemies. He takes an arrow and he shoots it at the water bag of Abbas. The water spills to the ground. There is another arrow. He shoots it into the eyes of Abbas. And now you see the horse of Abbas is no longer going towards the camp. Now this horse is returning back to There is no reason to go towards the camp. Finally, Al-Abbas, the protector of Zainab, the flag bearer of Al-Hussein, he falls to the plains of Karbala. He calls out to Aba Abdullah, alayka minni salam, ya akha, oh my dear brother, these are my last salams to you. Imam al-Hussein, he comes towards the body of Al-Abbas. He sits down near the body of Al-Abbas and he looks at his body. He looks at his brother. He's covered in the sand of Karbala. He's covered in his own blood. He looks at his brother and his brother is lying on the ground. He says to him, "O Abbas, al-an inkasara dhahrihi." Now my back has been broken. Abbas, now my motivation is... But he still has to come back towards the tent. And he has to bring the flag towards the tent. And the children are seeing the flag of Abbas is returning. How does Aba Abdullah tell the children? How does he tell the women and children that the flag is coming without the flag bearer? The horse is coming without the rider. The things are coming without the water. He comes to the campsite. He goes to the tent of Abbas. He starts to dismantle the tent of Abbas. He is informing them, the one who used to be in this tent is no longer coming. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم يا حسين.
تو دعا ہے، شبیر تیرا آقا البنین ماں ہے، ہر صورت و چلن میں حیدر سے نا جدا ہے، تا حشر تجھ سے قائم دنیا میں بس وفا ہے، عباس 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 عباس، تیرے علم کو تھامے ہر شخص کہہ رہا ہے، مظلوم کربلا کا زینب کا واسطہ ہے، پردیس کوئی ایسا پردیس میں نہ اجڑے، صدقے میں اس کے جس کا گھر بار لٹ گیا ہے، عباس 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 عباس، سب مل کے عباس. How many hearts are broken by the flight of an arrow? All the water has fallen, and then the alam follows. Sakina cries out in her grief, Baba, my thirst has left me. I'll never ask for water, just bring my uncle back, please. Abbas, 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 Abbas. اس وقت جب کہ زینب دربار میں گئی تھی، قاری نمازیوں سے محفل سجی ہوئی تھی، ظالم یہ پوچھتا تھا غازی تیرا کہاں ہے، بالوں سے منہ چھپائے زینب یہ کہہ رہی تھی، عباس 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 تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے نہ تجھ روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے تجھ روئے. جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھ روئے، جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھ روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے، زمانہ تجھ روئے، عباس تیرا حق ہے. تجھ روئے جس وقت اتایا نہ گیا لاشا جواں کا جس وقت اتایا نہ گیا لاشا جواں کا شہ اس گھری اکبر سے زیادہ تجھ روئے شہ اس گھری اکبر سے زیادہ تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے زمانہ تجھ روئے عباس زینب نے کہا شام غریبا میں ہے غازی زینب نے کہا شام غریبا میں ہے غازی بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے بابا تجھ روئے بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے بابا تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے ابا تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے بن ہاتھوں کے کس طرح تو گورے سے گراتا بن ہاتھوں کو کس طرح تو گورے سے گراتا یہ سن کے بہت اہل مدینہ تجھ روئے یہ سن کے بہت اہل مدینہ تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے ابا روئے ارمان سکینہ کا تجتنا تجھ روتی ارمان سکینہ کا تجتنا تجھ روتی سجاد تیری قبر پہ اتنا تجھ روئے سجاد تیری قبر پہ اتنا تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا زمانہ تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے تجھ روئے جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھ روئے جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے تجھ روئے ابا سے تیرا حق ہے تجھ روئے یا سیدی یا عباس یا ابا الفضل العباس یا سیدی یا عباس یا ابا الفضل العباس سکینہ کے چچا جان یا ابا الفضل العباس یا عباس یا ابا الفضل العباس یا سیدی
سب پڑھو یا عباس 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 یا عباس
Abbas, Shaykh Abbas, Shaykh Abbas, Shaykh Abbas, Shaykh Abbas, Shaykh Abbas, Shaykh Abbas, Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas.
اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، 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 اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا۔ رو رو کہتی تھی سکینہ رن میں، رو رو کہتی تھی سکینہ رن میں، لٹ گئی ثانی زہرا کی ردا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا۔ شمر نے مارے تماچے ہے میرے گالوں پہ، جھرکیاں دے کے اٹھایا ہے مجھے، جھرکیاں دے کے اٹھایا ہے مجھے، بابا کی لاش پہ رونے نہ دیا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا۔ شمر نے مارے تماچے ہے میرے گالوں پہ، جھرکیاں دے کے اٹھایا ہے مجھے، جھرکیاں دے کے اٹھایا ہے مجھے، بابا کی لاش پہ رونے نہ دیا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، چھین کر سب کی ردائیں اور جلائے خیمے، ایسے لوٹا ہے مسلمانوں نے، ایسے لوٹا ہے مسلمانوں نے، نہ کیا آل محمد کا حیا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، چھین کر سب کی ردائیں اور جلائے خیمے، ایسے لوٹا ہے مسلمانوں نے، ایسے لوٹا ہے مسلمانوں نے، نہ کیا آل محمد کا حیا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا، اب تو آ جاؤ وفا، تم کو عباس
بھروسہ تھا بہت قید ہونے سے بچائے تم کو قید ہونے سے بچائے تم کو آنکھیں یہ شمر نے زینب سے کہا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا
اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ وفا
توڑی دیوار کے اکبر کے جگر میں برچی اور ستم گئے نے کہا مولا سے اور ستم گئے نے کہا مولا سے یہ سنا ہے کہ تو صابر ہے برا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا
اے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا
توڑی دیوار کے اکبر کے جگر میں برچی اور ستم گئے نے کہا مولا سے اور ستم گئے نے کہا مولا سے یہ سنا ہے کہ تو صابر ہے بڑا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ ہے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ ہے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ صاحب العصر یہ الفاظ عطا کرتے ہیں کوئی خوبی یہ نہیں اختر کی کوئی خوبی یہ نہیں اختر کی اس کے نوحوں میں ہے زہرا کی دعا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا اے وفا رو رو کہتی تھی سکینہ رن میں رو رو کہتی تھی سکینہ رن میں لٹ گئی ثانی زہرا کی ردا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا چھین کر سب کی ردائیں اور جلائے خیمے ایسے لوٹا ہے مسلمانوں نے ایسے لوٹا ہے مسلمانوں نے نہ کیا آل محمد کا حیا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ اے وفا یا حسین 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 سر کو کٹا کے دن پہ سر کو کٹا کے دن پہ خود کربلا پہ کر دیا تو نے حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Mu'mineen, Salah time is 9:09 p.m. Please prepare for Salah.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل عليه. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة. هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح. هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقول. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
brothers, just a quick announcement. After Isha Dua, we'll inshallah have Munajat, followed by Ziyarat Ashura. Please recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي فأجول في طلبه البلدان فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران لا أدري أفي سهل هو أم في جبل أم في أرض أم في سماء أم في بر أم في بحر وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك اللهم فصل على محمد وآله واجعل يا رب رزقك لي واسعا ومطلبه سهلا ومأخذه قريبا ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك فصل على محمد وآله وجد على عبدك بفضلك إنك ذو فضل عظيم
درود پر صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد. Just a short piece of poetry about Hazrat Abbas. The chorus roughly translates to the following. O the quencher of the thirst of the family of Imam Hussein, we have come to your door. The world in its entirety has let us down, but we know that you won't let us down. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sakaye haram rakh lena bharam hum dar pe tumhare aaye hain. All together if you know the words. Sakaye haram rakh lena bharam hum dar pe tumhare aaye hain. tum bhi nahi hum ko ठुकराना हम दुनिया को ठुकराए हैं सकाए हरम रख लेना भरम हम दर पे तुम्हारे आए हैं अब सारे सहारे टूट चुके हम अपने पराए लूट चुके तुम अपनी पनाहों में ले लो हम गम से बहुत घबराए है सकाए हरम रख लेना भरम हम दर पे तुम्हारे आए हैं I swear by your hands, our hands are never empty when we leave from your heaven. Your hand severed fell to the floor. Our hands are raised, knocking your door. Sakaye haram rakh lena bharam हम दर पे तुम्हारे मौला 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 तुम बाबे हवाइज हो रोज़े पे उन्हें भी बुलवा लो गुर्बत के सबब जो आ न सके हम उनके अरीज़े लाए हैं सकाए हरम रख लेना भरम हम दर पे तुम्हारे आए हैं सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا خيرة الله وابن خيرته السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار يا أبا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت عظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام وجلت عظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم يا أبا عبد الله إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبا ولعن الله ابن مرجانا ولعن الله عمر بن سعد ولعن الله شمرا ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة يا أبا عبد الله إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم وأبرأوا إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابيبكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم العن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم العن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعات وبايعات وتابعت على قتله. اللهم العنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدأ به أولا ثم العن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم العن يزيد خامسا والعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. Please enter السجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم، الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبتني قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن، عجل الله فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه وظهوره. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.